Hi, everyone. Um, we are truly honored for your invitation today. I mean, really, it's a wonderful thing to be part of. We both are so looking forward to this engaging dialogue, to this whole initiative, which is like bridge cultures between different factions in our community, right? Which is very important for us too. I'm going to give a quick intro about myself. And Luai, my friend here, will introduce himself as well. So my name is Fatma Mansour. Just a quick joke on the side. So my name is Fatma. It's a one word, right? It's Fatma. And we all know how Starbucks mess up our names all the time, right? So I was walking into one of my classes. I was an adjunct faculty of economics for many years. And I ordered my coffee. I found the barista after 5 minutes walking all the way around the desk and bringing my coffee to me in a very special way. I was like, why didn't you call my name? That's so weird. I walked into my class, putting the coffee on my podium, and I found that the Starbucks lady got me as a fat mom, two syllables. So I was like, oh my God, he felt so bad calling me a fat mom. Not a fat mom. So anyway, my students really cracked up and I went back to Starbucks like, well, just for the future, just Fatma is a one word thing. It's not a fat mom. But anyway, my name is Fatma Mansour. I was born and raised in Egypt. Came to the US 22 years ago to pursue my master in behavioral economics in California. Then after that, I worked for 8 years as a statistician on urban development projects. Basically, I would help think tank and researchers to properly model their data and analyze your tax money where it goes to the governmental projects like light rail extension or new neighborhoods, and whether this is properly invested or not. After that, I went back to academia, was an adjunct faculty of economics for many years. Then I transitioned into financial services world, the fun thing that everyone talks about these days, and economics. And currently, I'm a financial analyst at Copart. Copart is an online car auctioning company in Dallas. And I also pursue my second master in finance these days. So that's just a quick intro about me. It's all about numbers and finance. Now, Luai, if you introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luay Abu Imara. I'm originally Palestinian. Actually, I was born in Egypt as well, but I lived my childhood in Saudi Arabia and came to the US. I've been in Austin for about 25 years now. I My field is computer engineering. I kind of made the rounds on companies in Austin. I've worked at IBM, Oracle, Samsung, NXP, to name a few. Currently, I am in a startup. I thought after 20 years of experience, I probably need to take that plunge. So wish me luck with that. And again, I cannot emphasize overemphasize how important this is and how thankful we are that you have invited us over. So I hope you enjoy our talk and will be available also for questions and answers. And we hope that this will be a seed for something to become perpetual and continuous and enrich this friendship between us and you. So thank you for having us.
Okay. So let's delve into the topic when we're going to talk about Arabic heritage. And honestly, this topic is very dear to me since, I'm a proud Arab American and I do have both identities. So I often ask myself, like, what does it mean to be an Arab and American, and how these two identities like interact and enrich my life in different ways. So let's talk about the term Arab. So the term Arab refers to the tribes that was in the Arabian Peninsula, right? And then as they expanded their influence, then the name Arab broadened significantly, right? So people from various regions and cultures, they actually adapted to the language Arabic. And being Arab became a matter of culture and linguistic choice, not ethnicity. So they all chose to adhere to the common language of Arabic, right? Now, this shared language, Arabic, well, intertwined with the spread of Islam at that time, it was the cornerstone of their identity being Arab, right? So the Islamic values of community, justice, unity, and learning, it underpin their identity along with their language. Now, the Quran being written in Arabic, Quran is the holy book in Islam. It actually preserved the classical form of Arabic. You know, it made it consistent across generations and across geographies. So again, adhering to this unified language made people adapt to this culture and became Arab, right? It's not ethnicity. So interesting, Arabic is also used by Christian community in the Middle East. We have the Egyptian church, which are the main Coptic Orthodox church in the Middle East and Africa, where we have Bibles written in Arabic, right? So that again shows how the unity is happening under the language, right? Adaptation of the language. Now, similarly to me, being American is about the set of ideals that was founded by Constitution and Declaration of Independence in this country, right? When you come to this country and become an American, you in essence adhere to these ideals, right? You integrate them into your life. So to me, both identities based on adoption and choosing not based on ethnicity, right? This is how common are these two identities to me. Now, you can think of this turning personal identity into a societal one. Like we all adhere to the overall ideals that both identity enrich, like, you know, justice, equality, mutual respect, right? And it's all like, it's not a personal identity, it became a societal one that we all affirm, you know, and agree on from the people around us. So that's a different way to look identity. Like to me, this is how I see myself as an Arab and American at the same time. Now, as we talk about identity, I want to, and you know, since my background has a lot of economic and finance, so many times I would have asked myself, like, what was the economic and finance contribution that happened back in the Arab world or the Arab Islamic culture that actually shaped the modern economic theories we have now? It's very interesting because the Islamic teachings and that was practiced in between the Arab traders put a very strong foundation for transactions and trade all over the economy, all over Europe, right? Because this is how the Arab world enriched the European culture and economics. So, for example, you guys all use check, right? So you write a check when you go to a store or to your friend or to buy something. So the word check originally is coming from an Arabic word that's called sak. So sak is a financial instrument that was invented by the Arab Islamic world back then. And credit. So this financial concepts wasn't even, it was introduced there before any modern economic theories that even comes up. Another way that it was fascinating to me when I was studying this part is the sak, or this financial instrument back in the Arab world. It was actually used as we use the bond now. So there's something in Arab Islamic finance or economics that it's called asset backing system. What that means is any transaction in our economy has to be backed up with an asset or a real investment project or a real legitimate service. And that's all this concept came so we can avoid inflation, recession, speculation, any uncertainty we can face in our economy. So it was also called sak. So this sak would be initiated, which shows partial ownership in whatever asset or service, like, you know, we have on this sak. What was interesting to me is in modern times, after all the financial and economic crisis we're facing in UK and US now, there actually a resurgence of this principle, Islamic principle. Like there are some that's been issued to partially have a real ownership in an asset or backed up by investment project, something like that. So that's one of the revolution thing that when you think about modern civilization, modern society, and how this was backed up to the Arab Islamic heritage, for me, that's very fascinating. The other concept that was very well known back then is trust. I mean, big universities now in the US, like Stanford, they are all financed by trust, like special investment that's just for a cause. That again is something that was born in the Arab heritage, Arab Islamic heritage, and was like moved to Europe and just moved to the Western civilization as well. So there are so many other achievements back in the Arab, Islamic culture that was moved to Europe, something like crop rotation or irrigation system that wasn't, it enriched the European economy really strong, that wasn't there before. So what's even more fascinating is the interfaith and intercivilizational interaction between Muslims and Christians and different cultures at that time. And that was the crucial role for any prosperity that happened back then. I mean, when you talk about prosperity, you have to shed light on Al-Andalus, right? Al-Andalus is like ancient Spain under the rule of Islam. So that was like a very big and prosperous time for economics. The economy was so strong. And one of the main reasons is because Muslim, Christian, and Jewish thought they were collaborating and working together at its finest. That was the peak of the collaboration between the three cultures or civilizations, I call. So they were translating, not only translating like the Greek and Roman texts, but also expanding that. We all know that the Arab scholars are the one who came up with the concept of zero and translated on based on the Indian mathematician, right? The numeral system. They replaced the Roman numeral system with the one we have now. That by itself changed the whole concept of accounting processes, or finance and economics in the whole world. So to me, like the collaboration between these faith or these cultures always prove to be what moves us forward and what make us stronger, right? So there isn't a journey without challenges, right? So we still face, as Arab Islamic heritage world, we still face stereotypes, misunderstanding, hindering perceptions, or maybe misrepresenting sometimes by historians even, or miscovered by historians. But honestly, like a dialogue like today, like us being in the same place, discussing each other backgrounds, each of us are like proud from where they're coming from and what they're doing and who do they belong to. But something like this will open so much potential in the future for a community, a stronger community, stronger economy. Like, when we're together, we can face anything, we can overcome anything, because at this point, there's no you and me, there's us. And that was the main reason, the strongest time in history that we were strong is when this happened. When Christian, Jewish, and Muslims, they were all collaborated, have inter-civilizational interaction, science, different aspects of achievements that modern society now and modern civilization won't be anywhere without this background. So, my friend here, Loai, today, he will take us through amazing journeys of Arab Muslim pioneers who came here. Their contributions might not be well covered by media or by books, but is very, very pivotal and important to the modern society we have today. So I think.
Thank you, Fatma. Okay, hello again, everyone. So as Fatma was talking about her Starbucks name, I thought I would reflect on that myself. And, my name is Lu'ay, and I write it the way I write it is like one consonant followed by three vowels. So I understand it can be challenging for some people. So
Well, at least you don't have that. So.
yeah, right. I'm getting there. And so I thought like anybody that has a unique name, I need to simplify it for people. So I would go by Lou. And sometimes they'll write it LU, sometimes we'll write it LOU. But then when I decided that I will not go with a simpler name, is once like they started writing it down as Luke. So I was like, okay, that's like totally changed the name. So I just stayed proud for who I am, and hey, I'll tell them LUAI, and it's still I'll get one letter mixed up, and even with enunciating the letters. So again, thank you all for having us over, and kind of to reflect on what Fatima was saying. Um, Coming from an Arabic and Islamic heritage, this sort of thing that we are doing right now is highly encouraged. I mean, there's a verse in the Quran that says, "O mankind," not all Muslims, not all believers, "O mankind." God addresses mankind. We have created you from a male and female, and we have made you into people and nations so you would get to know one another. Surely, the most noble amongst you is the one who's most righteous, and God is all aware and He's all knowing. So I just wanted to emphasize that this thing is very encouraged for us as well. I would like to start our journey by reflecting on where I came from. My parents and grandparents, they came from Palestine. Um, uh, to make it relevant to what's going on right now, you've heard of the ethnic cleansing of 1948 of the Palestinians. That's where my great grandfather and grandfather theirs it came from. So I am fourth generation inheriting the title refugee from Palestine. My ancestors made their way into Egypt. Um, uh, One of my grandfathers was actually a teacher in Palestine in Jaffa, and when he made his way into Egypt, I mean they had to make ends meet, and he worked as a teacher. And when you think about contributions of like Palestinian peoples and Arabs in general to the broader region, there were opportunities that were opening up across countries. So, for example, in the 50s, my grandfather was in Egypt. There were opportunities for teaching coming online in a small country called Kuwait at the time. So, my aunt actually traveled in the 50s to Kuwait to start becoming a teacher and help her dad make ends meet. So, a lot of people, even in the 50s, were literate. They valued education. My other grandfather, he found some opportunities in Saudi Arabia. He went there. Funny thing about our family is that he was offered to actually bring his whole family to Saudi Arabia. At the time, his calculus was, well, my children now are in schools and universities in Egypt. If I bring them to Saudi Arabia, nothing of that sort has come online yet. So he actually decided to go by himself, work, and then as they were finishing their education, they would go one by one as they finish and get some job opportunities in Saudi Arabia. So that's kind of like our life in the diaspora was concentrated about, education and finding opportunities to make life better. Now, so as you might know, basically I was born in Egypt, but I spent most of my childhood in Saudi Arabia. My dad applied for immigration to the United States, and we came to the United States back in '96. I finished college in Seattle. I graduated from University of Washington, and found my way to Austin. Now, when I was in college, I decided to go into engineering. Like what a good engineering student does, applies to all internships that are out there before going into the field. So one interesting experience that I really cherish is having gone to an area called Tri-Cities in Washington State. I don't know if any of you heard of Hanford nuclear site. So my first internship was there for the Lockheed Martin Hanford Corporation. And when I went there, I got to meet an Egyptian engineer. His name was Shafiq Rifai. Um, Not a lot of literature was written about him or like media hype or anything like that. But he was an Egyptian PhD who designed a nuclear site, a nuclear plant in 1965 in Hanford. And shortly after he designed it, it was decommissioned after like they start two agreements with Russia and so forth. So he stayed behind to work on the cleanup projects that were happening there. Basically, there was a race between Russia and the United States, and a lot of the techniques to do chain reactions and nuclear plants in general were coming online very fast. That the remediation of nuclear waste was I don't want to say an afterthought, but maybe something that was not thought of thoroughly. So he was one of the key people that was actually coming with the processes in order to remediate the nuclear waste so it doesn't make it into the Columbia River and our drinking water. So that's somebody that I met, and I felt very proud that, like, as I was saying, Palestinian people and Egyptians in particular, they were very instrumental in bringing education to the rest of the Arab world, especially into the Arabia region, like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, UAE, and so forth. So it was one of my proudest moments to see somebody so accomplished. I mean, other people like that, we all know of the Apollo program, for example, and the landing on the moon. There was another Egyptian engineer. His name is Farouk El-Baz, who worked at NASA. He's one of the people that was working in the control room in NASA and during the Apollo missions. And at age 31, one of the people that were working on the calculation of the site to land on the moon. So that as I came to the US and as I started like going into the field of engineering, I started coming across such really interesting figures and names of people that truly make you proud. When I came to Austin, I mean, as I said, I've been in Austin for about 25 years, and I've seen a lot of people that came to Austin, joined various fields of whether medicine or engineering, and make names for themselves. I mean, just to bring it to the local level. For example, like I worked at NXP. NXP, if you might know, is what back in the day was called Motorola. Motorola was spun out. The semiconductor division became Freescale. If you've been long enough in Austin, you know Freescale. And then Freescale was bought by Philips Semiconductor, which basically became NXP. So that's the company that's called NXP right now. A technical fellow over there, Anis Jarrah, he's from Jordan. I worked under his leadership designing microprocessors for cars, for safety and for assisted driving and autonomous driving. So that's one field that Arab Americans are heavily involved in. There are people like Faris Bell, who's from Syrian origin. Currently, he is the VP of Semiconductor Division at ARM. ARM is the company that makes the designs of microprocessors that go into cell phones, that go into small servers, that go into our handhelds. So it's a very formidable company. And another person is Rami Sinno, who is the director of engineering at Amazon Web Services here in Houston. So there are important names. And funny thing, when I first came to Austin, I went to an internal medicine clinic, and the doctor there, Ghassan Salman, was an internal medicine doctor, but he was ambitious and he went to talks, and he was very active in his field until he became the CEO of the Austin Diagnostic Clinic. So that's that. These are some names that you think of, and you see that there are people from your culture who have taken it seriously upon themselves to make themselves, to better themselves, to make a living for their family, and to make a good representation of their culture and their heritage to the general population. And so what I want to conclude with this is that also for us as Arab Americans, I was not born here, but I had the advantage of coming here at 15 years old, so knowing how things and how I had the basics and the fundamentals from where I came from, but also lived some of my childhood here, and I grew here. I became of age here, and built a life for my family. And something that very emotional for me is that my kids were born in this country. They are Americans. I only can become a senator. One of them can become a president. So it's what's important for me raising my children. I want them, of course, to preserve their language. We talk Arabic at home to the point where they got annoyed with the school telling them that you are ESL, though they speak English better than me. And preserving their religion, and being a very integral part of society, adding to the good of society. And I see them going into that, taking that role on, and basically where it all started from, emphasizing education, being the best that you can, being literate, being going into a field where you can make a difference. So these are important things to me, and raising our children, and making sure that they preserve the culture, but also being an integral part of society. So with that, I'll conclude, and I'd like to thank you all for having us over, and maybe we can open it for Q&A.
I just wanted to add a quick point, since he talked about kids and younger generations, and I see we have a mix here. But I do believe in the true change in the future. We all live and see every day what's going on around the world. And without this open dialogue, and without this communication between the older generation, the younger ones, the true change won't happen. And we also recently that the younger ones came out and start expressing their feelings and their opinions, which is a little bit different from the old school ones. But something like what we do today is a role model for the younger ones to see we can talk. We can talk about different even opinions. We have to respect it. We don't have to agree on it, but we can respect it. And maybe with the continuous discussion, we can find the right thing for both of us to live in the same society and community, right? So that's all I have. So if anyone has a question.
I think he had a question.
Yes.
A little comment that I think you might appreciate. When I was a teenager, we had some Kuwaiti exchange students that lived with us, and they introduced us to the music of the oud and all that stuff. And I really learned to love Arab music and music of the Middle East in general. And I had a lifelong interest in culture and music, and I became aware at a certain point of the way that Arab music influenced American rock and roll through California surfer guitar. Okay, there was a guy whose name escapes me who was of Arab extraction who wrote a song called Miserlou, which was a traditional song, that he had learned. That became a hit record. And pretty soon, It was really an old piece, really. And pretty soon all those California surfer types, the Beach Boys and everyone else were playing this minor key, you can hear it. If you know it's there, you can hear the oud in American rock and roll. There was also a guy named Davy Graham who spent some years traveling in the Middle East and came back to England where he was from and introduced a lot of us folk music people to interesting guitar tunings that were all derived from ode tunings. And so it was there too. So that's one of the things I like to do. I just kind of keep my ears open to hear things like that.
Yeah, our music is definitely was a language. It's a universal language that we try to interact with the world with it. Yeah, right. It's interesting. I have a son who's a cellist, so he plays cello. And he plays usually classical music, and the other one actually plays guitar. So we travel to Egypt. I mean, maybe every other summer or something, but recently his ears got more into the oud pieces. So he was trying to integrate this Oriental, music into the cello. It did sound like, to me, especially to me, it was so nostalgic, right? Like it hits like, oh my God, I teared that day. So it was really, really nice. So music really is a language of soul that it's very, very special. Anyone? Yes.
Yes, I just, I'm a pediatric home care nurse. And in Texas and in Minnesota, I had Muslim patients, and they're not all the same. I think the culture or the country they come from really affects how things are accepted. And I had to learn a lot, like, take my shoes off at the door. I remember somebody washing their feet in the sink. And some things I couldn't accept, like the female mutilation of sexual parts. I had Somali patients, Jordanian patient, another family that came from Jordan, but they were, I think, Saudi. So it was a variety. So,
well, the interesting thing about this, I know it's easily to tie to being Muslim because, I mean, especially Muslim female, they pretty much can be very visual, right? The way they dress or the way they are different. So sometimes you can tie this not acceptable things very easily to them being Muslim. But to be honest, if you go to the core of the religion itself, like sometimes it's the complete opposite. And this damage happened just either because of the colonization or just ignorance in that culture that just somehow tied this ignorance to
well,
being
the thing that this was years ago. The hospital I worked at was had a lecture, and it sounded like they were telling us to accept it, and I was against it. Yeah.
I'm assisting. I shouldn't really be.
I can't hear you.
I'm just assisting. I shouldn't be speaking, but that's a really good point you bring up. I think there's a misconception that it is religiously related, that specific practice, because it is unacceptable, but it's actually cultural. If you look
Yeah,
at
that's what I thought.
yeah.
It seemed like it was Somali. Yeah.
Well, in quite a few countries, but I believe Africa, yes, from what I know.
Ethiopia for sure.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate. There are unacceptable practices in every culture, and it's a matter of time and patience and teaching, educating to get rid of those kind of, because it's very harmful.
Yeah.
Like lifelong harm. Yeah, I agree with you.
But I couldn't understand why my hospital was
That's
telling us to accept that.
Right? Yeah.
yeah. And speaking of washing their feet in the sink, by the way, that's ablution. That's part of getting ready for prayers. So you do have certain parts of your body you have to wash before every prayer. And we pray 5 times a day. You know that. I'm sure you've seen them. So that's this preparation. It's a way to prepare yourself, like spiritually and physically, that you're going to stand in front of your creator now. It's just like, getting rid of so many things. It's really very important for Muslims.
And I didn't realize the father had such an important role of being in charge of the whole family. He went on a business trip once, and the females there, it was like sisters and the wife, they wanted to go to the movies. So I took them to the movies, and I got in trouble for doing that without his permission.
Okay.
Yeah.
This might be particular to this family, but it's really hard to generalize this to them being Muslim, because in Islam, the main teaching in Islam is how empowered and strong and independent the woman is, taking her own decisions and doing her own business. The wife of the Prophet, peace be upon him, she was one of the well-known famous entrepreneur and businesswoman in the area. So she would do her deals and her business transaction, all these things, without going back to her husband. So that might be, again, tied to a particular culture, but it just happened to Islam is popular in this, but it's not necessarily because of the Islamic teachings.
And I would like to add that a lot of these views are also changing, not only here, but also if you watch like shows in the Arabic region, how openness and even like there are talk shows about like these issues and how women are becoming more independent. When I was in Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia is a very, very conservative society, and culturally that imposed a lot of restrictions on women. My mom at the time, she had an accounting degree, but there were no jobs for accountant women in Saudi Arabia at the time. So she decided to go and learn about these new things coming up called computers, right? And that was like in the 80s, early 90s, the PCs were starting to become popular, and she designed the first course of computer curriculum for girls' schools in Saudi Arabia. So she was one of the first people to do that. But considering the society, she wouldn't have been able to accomplish that if my father was not very supportive. He could have suppressed that and said, no, your role is to stay at home, which he would have gotten a lot of support for that in Saudi Arabia at the time, which is changing now a lot. But he was open-minded. He thought that it was important for her to have a sense of accomplishment. She wanted to do this, and she was able to do it. And she has like a great legacy in the computer girl schooling system in Saudi Arabia. So opportunities are out there, and I think it makes a lot of difference if that step was taken when they were challenges in the path of accomplishing this. Nowadays, the picture is a lot different. Societies have become more enlightened, more open to the idea of independent women, and it's nothing that actually interferes with what Islam as a religion is teaching. So I think that's important to emphasize.
I like learning about religions. Last Sunday after here, I went to the Baha'is, and they have a discussion group there.
Good. That's awesome.
Sorry. I was just going to say another area that modern day owes an awful lot of I don't want to use the word thanks, but it came from Arabic foundations is in astronomy. Most of the most of the star names used by Western culture came from.
Right, and the preparation for this, but for the sake of time, I mean, I love watching documentaries for Neil deGrasse Tyson. I mean, he's, you know, your everyday astrophysicist, and he touched on that. Like about 80% of the star names come from Arabic names, and which means that, well, the stars back in the day were important for navigation. Actually, something that I think is owed a lot of more research is when on the trips to discover the Americas, how many people on these ships were actually Muslims and navigators that had the astrolabe and they knew from the stars where to go, and they were like in this ocean and not lost. So it's astrophysics, and with that also the invention of the telescope. There's a scientist named Ibn al-Haytham. I think they have like an English name for him that totally does not represent the word. I forgot even how you say it because it's just wrong. But he was a pioneer in optics, which enabled astronomy and so forth. So
I was gonna say the zero and the algorithms, right?
Right.
Algebra,
right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
One of the interesting things is Eric and I visited the Islamic Center of Brushy Creek in December and had a couple of conversations with different people, and there was a lot of interest in where there was a dark spot. The young man that I was speaking with asked where I went. He was which is out north of Leander, up near Crystal. Anyway, it's up north. Yes, it's up north there, and he was familiar with it. So I mean that that impressed me that some of that is still involved in the Islamic and Arab culture. The other thing that was impressive there was the fact that because there were so many different cultures and nations represented, that once a month they would have a nation or a culture that present some things that were specific.
So it's funny you mentioned that because I mean my house is like 5 minutes away from
Same here. I was about to say that.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I'm part of organizing this intercultural thing monthly, so that's why I'm
Sure.
really happy to hear this feedback.
And I don't want to say it's funny. It's kind of like interesting that in September it was the month that we decided, or it was decided to do Palestine, and I presented with a bunch of other people about Palestine, and right after like October 7th happened, and like the whole thing came to the forefront. But one, it's important that like for every Palestinian, it's important to show, even to follow fellow Arab and Muslims, what our culture is about. And I mean, it's like a tiny piece of land, but like there are so much culture in there. So it kind of affirms to me in a way that we are attached to that culture, whether there is a crisis or not. We were willing to come forward and speak about it and speak to the injustices that were happening to people living there or in the diaspora. It did not need a crisis to come up for us to talk about it, and that was I mean, definitely it's not a happy thing to say, but it's a validating thing to say to the upbringing and the roots that taken hold inside us regarding that part of the world.
That October 7th is just the most recent, of the many, oppressions and horrible things that have happened. 70 years of this going on and beyond before that too. But we'll just start at 70 years, just for a point of reference. And so now we're here where we are. Is there anything that you think that we could do as individuals to help support the people of Palestine, the reconciliation, or the education, whatever you think would be appropriate.
I think that the crucial thing that we all need now is awareness, spreading proper awareness. You know, one of the things that we come across when something like this big happens is we find that there's some passivity in a way where people knows, as you were saying, that's just this what's going on now, but maybe not what's happening before that. You know, this is not. I remember my husband was telling me yesterday there was someone who was asking specifically about the October 7th situation. It was like it's as if you just watched the last season of,
Yeah.
of the, remember this one? You just watched the last season. You just missed 5 seasons before that, right? So that's a problem. Is like there's 5 seasons before that people don't know about, and unfortunately, the problem is not even with only Palestine, even with Ukraine and so many other political conflicts that the states went in, where like people don't know back the history of this country. You know, we know what's going on with Russia and Ukraine now, but then if you ask people like, do you know anything about Ukraine like 10 years ago? Well, what was this country about? Like where the conflict started? Very few people who would know that. So the same thing with Palestine, spreading proper awareness and proper presentation of the culture and just taking away misunderstanding and, the misconception that's going on. That's from the awareness and educational point that I actually do myself. I think from the actual hands-on help, maybe like.
I mean, so, yeah, so there's direct and indirect ways.
Yeah.
So indirect ways that fosters the road to becoming direct support is actually being more aware and learning more about it. But also, there is also like helping the people over there. There are a lot of GoFundMe's that are coming online, and there are people that are trying to vet them. Because I would be against like going like to a specific GoFundMe and just seeing a random one, because you can get scammed. You're all the way here in America, you don't know. So these things, there are projects like Project Olive Branch and Poppy Flower and some others that they try, to vet these GoFundMe's. But also there are like organizations like Islamic Relief, there is Rahma, there is Life. What is it?
PCRF.
PCRF. That's
How are they able to get the, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, sure. No,
Yeah.
go ahead.
How are they able to get the help into the country?
Right. So, for example, I follow Rahma Foundation, for example. I think they're based in Kuwait, and even during the blockade, they were able to get at least like doctors in.
Yeah.
To the areas where they are semi-safe, like in Rafah and southern areas and so forth. But once they were able to get in, I think at least like 3 times, staying like 2 weeks at a time. There are doctors that actually went from the United States to join them. Yes, the aid is stretched for miles outside. And I don't know if some of that aid was translated into the airdrop that I've been doing. I do not know. But there is a sad situation that there is aid that's either it is blocked on the Rafah side or gets in through Jordan and gets looted by settlers. Unfortunately, it's a very awful situation about how the aid can get in. The other thing, if you guys have social media amplifying the voices, it's a stressful thing to do, but I almost follow every single person that that's reporting like on the ground over there. And when there is important footage or something like that, other organizations like Middle East Eye Palestine, some well-known influencers are spreading those on either Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook.
Yeah.
So it's important to amplify these voices. So we got
Maybe one more brief comment.
okay. Maybe give her a chance because she did not ask, and
Go ahead.
I have one comment and one question. Initially, I want to thank you guys for being here because I think so much of kind of what you mentioned and or at least what I've seen post October 7th, when everything has been really amplified and really loud on social media, is that there seems to be a justification of some of this genocide based on some of these stereotypes or generalizations about Middle Eastern countries and female genital mutilation or how they treat women or how they treat homosexuals. And so I think this is so important to kind of debunk a lot of those ideas. And then also I wanted to ask you about, I've been donating to UNRWA. And so I wanted to see if you guys knew if that was like.
Right. So can I speak?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
One reason why I came here today, I attended a live on TikTok for somebody that has like 300,000 followers. And basically his premise was October 7th worth it, number one. And number two, what did Palestinians add to humanity? Okay. So there are.
That's the last question. Listen.
And what did Palestinians add to humanity? It's a belittling thing, right? That basically they're just good for terrorism and spreading mischief, and so basically a justification for what's happening to them. So that's when I see that some of that is still taking place and people spewing such words, it gives me more motivation to come and talk and show people what the reality is. Now about UNRWA. I just heard this morning that the Knesset is going to declare it as a terrorist organization. I mean, this is unheard of, like a United Nations organization becoming a terrorist organization. Now, on your side here, you also need to, when you are donating, you are responsible for where you put your money. Yeah. And that organization is still, the United States considered it as the main humanitarian organization that is serving in the occupied territories and even outside the occupied territories right now, because UNRWA is not only in Gaza, it is in Gaza and the West Bank and Jordan and Lebanon, I think even in Syria.
Yep.
And ironically, it is an organization that the United States decided to put so much funding into because of the support they have given Israel in order to expel all these people out. Yeah. So for the United States to kind of like pull funding from it is a little hypocritical. Now, what I want to get with that is that, yes, you can continue to donate to UNRWA until the United States gets affected by the Israeli influence into declaring it as a terrorist organization or something like that, God forbid. But it is a safe avenue to donate to, because even if it doesn't reach too many people in Gaza, like the other aid around, it's reaching refugee camps in Lebanon, it's reaching refugee camps in Syria and Jordan. So its function is very vital. And if you look at like the countries that withheld funding from UNRWA, on the European side, like Germany, who's the biggest supporter for like providing military aid to Israel, they resumed funding. Everybody in the European Union, I think, at this point has resumed funding to UNRWA. So I stopped with that. Yeah.
We're going to need to stop.
Yeah.
If you could stay afterwards, if we have lots of time to talk one-on-one.
Okay, that'll be great. Sounds good.
I just want to make people aware that there are Quakers in the West Bank in particular, and Palestinian Quakers, and there are ways to give through them, and I think that's important to know. People on the West Bank are really suffering at this point, as well as Gaza. And so some of the news that we get from there is really sort of hard. The point is to ask for peace. If the point is to ask for a ceasefire, the point is to not blame anybody, but try to figure out how to put this thing together. So, and I've been somebody who's been following this since I'm 13, before I'm 13 years old, and come from a Jewish background, but I have been following the Israeli-Palestinian situation. I visited twice, and over many years, feel that the only thing we can do is ask for peace, not take sides on this thing, even though I do feel as if the United States has taken a side that I am not in favor of as an American citizen.
Thank you, Liz.
Yeah, thank you.
Need time to get ready for work.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.